Why can't you just let it go? Maybe you've heard it 1,000 times, and it makes sense in theory. But here's the kicker: your brain disagrees. The persistent nagging of unresolved issues is not a character flaw. It's hardwired into your neural setup. Imagine trying to run a computer with outdated software. Glitches are inevitable. Your brain's firmware is no different. It's programmed to prioritize unresolved information, like an annoying app that demands constant updates. This isn't just a personal quirk, it's universal. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a thought bubble containing a repetitive worry. P2. Stickman surrounded by digital update required notifications. P3. Stickman tugging at an imaginary thread that won't break. P4. Stickman with a brain visual showing loading icon. /prompts. The neural reality behind this mental loop was highlighted by Dr. Daniel Wegner's research on ironic process theory. Your brain's attempt to suppress thoughts actually makes them more persistent. Picture an antivirus software that inadvertently downloads a virus. When you try to let go, your brain amplifies the very signal you're trying to mute. This cognitive friction isn't a sign of weakness, it's your neural architecture doing its job. Your brain is designed to scan for unresolved threads, like a radar seeking out unidentified blips. You're battling against millennia of evolved predictive processing. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain radar searching for blips. P2. Stickman with a thought suppression button that malfunctions. P3. Stickman reviewing a mental loop checklist. P4. Stickman with an ironic smile, surrounded by spiraling thoughts. /prompts. So what goes wrong? The fatal error occurs when your brain confuses significance with noise. Imagine a fire alarm that goes off every time someone lights a candle. Your brain's predictive processing system is wired to give priority to unresolved issues, but it sometimes fails to distinguish between a life-threatening blaze and a flickering candle. This leads to a buildup of neural overhead, the mental equivalent of running too many apps at once, slowing down your cognitive bandwidth. Without intervention, this loop can become your brain's version of a never-ending software glitch. Prompts. P1. Stickman with multiple thought bubbles labeled high priority. P2. Stickman faced with a mental traffic jam. P3. Stickman trying to extinguish a candle mistaken for a fire. P4. Stickman clutching their head, surrounded by swirling apps. /prompts. Here's what's unexpected. This seemingly flawed system holds a strategic advantage. By not letting go, your brain ensures that potential threats are never ignored. It's a survival mechanism, an evolutionary trade-off that keeps you alert. Imagine your brain as a vigilant night guard, scanning the horizon for danger. This depth of processing means your brain is always on high alert for predictive errors. While that might seem like overkill in a world where saber-toothed tigers are no longer a threat, in the realm of complex social dynamics, it can be a lifesaver. Prompts. P1. Stickman as a night guard with binoculars. P2. Stickman observing a horizon filled with potential threats. P3. Stickman holding a magnifying glass over a small detail. P4. Stickman with a brain radar, now showing a clear target. /prompts. So, how do you navigate this neural maze? Introducing this signal-to-noise protocol. This involves training your brain to recalibrate its baseline. By consciously distinguishing between significant and irrelevant signals, you can reduce the neural overhead. Think of it as cognitive decluttering. The process is simple: categorize, prioritize, and consciously redirect focus. But remember, in the world of neural architecture, simplicity often masks complexity. Are you ready to challenge your brain's default settings? Prompts. P1. Stickman using a brain filter to separate signals. P2. Stickman with a checklist labeled significant versus irrelevant. P3. Stickman organizing thought bubbles into categories. P4. Stickman with a focused beam of light, illuminating one thought. /prompts. You might think your brain's refusal to let things go is a modern inconvenience, perhaps a side effect of overcaffeination or information overload. But the evolutionary blueprint for this neural quirk was laid down long before the internet existed. The misconception? That our brains are optimized for peace and tranquility. In reality, they evolved in a world where survival meant constant vigilance. Imagine a prehistoric landscape where letting go of a threat could be the difference between life and death. Your brain is still running that ancient software. Prompts. P1. Stickman in a prehistoric landscape, looking alert. P2. Stickman surrounded by digital and ancient notifications. P3. Stickman with a brain that resembles an ancient computer. P4. Stickman trying to relax, but constantly peeking over their shoulder. /prompts. The neural mechanics we experience today are rooted in the concept of error management theory, introduced by evolutionary psychologists David Buss and Marty Hasselton. Your brain is engineered to err on the side of caution, treating potential threats as real dangers until proven otherwise. Consider it an evolutionary insurance policy. This predictive processing system is designed to minimize costly mistakes. Picture your brain as a seasoned risk manager who is always hedging bets. The downside? A flood of false positives that keeps the neural alarm bells ringing more often than necessary. Prompts. P1. Stickman as a risk manager, weighing options on a scale. P2. Stickman with a brain sending out false positive alerts. P3. Stickman surrounded by both real and imagined threats. P4. Stickman with a brain that looks like a complex control panel. /prompts. The fatal error here lies in the system's overzealous nature. It's like having a smoke detector that triggers for burnt toast. Your brain's hypervigilant design means it often sacrifices accuracy for speed, leading to misfires. This creates cognitive friction, where the mental effort to separate real threats from imagined ones depletes your cognitive resources. Over time, this can result in sensory saturation, a state where your brain is overloaded and unable to process new information effectively. Without recalibration, this endless loop of hyperalertness becomes a psychological tax. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain resembling an overloaded circuit board. P2. Stickman frantically trying to turn off a smoke detector. P3. Stickman with a thought cloud labeled burnt toast versus real fire. P4. Stickman drowning in a sea of alarm bells. /prompts. Yet, amidst this chaos lies a hidden advantage. This evolutionary trade-off has equipped humans with an unparalleled capacity for depth of processing. By constantly scanning for potential threats, our brains have developed a sophisticated ability to predict and plan. It's like being equipped with a mental Swiss Army knife, always ready for the unexpected. This relentless scrutiny allows us to navigate complex social landscapes and adapt to rapidly changing environments. The irony is that the very system causing our mental clutter is also what enables our cognitive flexibility. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain resembling a Swiss Army knife. P2. Stickman navigating a complex maze with ease. P3. Stickman using binoculars to see distant, potential threats. P4. Stickman juggling multiple tasks with a confident expression. /prompts. So, how do you harness this evolutionary legacy without drowning in cognitive debris? Enter the predictive calibration protocol. This protocol involves training your brain to fine-tune its predictive processing system. By practicing mindfulness and metacognition, you can teach your brain to better distinguish between genuine threats and false alarms. The aim is not to silence the alarm, but to adjust its sensitivity. As you recalibrate, you may find that your brain becomes a more efficient navigator of the modern world. Are you ready to recalibrate your neural compass? Prompts. P1. Stickman adjusting a brain dial labeled sensitivity. P2. Stickman with a checklist for mindfulness and metacognition. P3. Stickman meditating with a focused, clear mind. P4. Stickman with a brain compass, pointing confidently forward. /prompts. Let's dive into the real cost of your brain's refusal to let go. It's not just an annoyance or a minor inconvenience. It's a significant cognitive drain. The misconception? That holding onto these thoughts is harmless background noise. In reality, it's the equivalent of running a high-energy consuming app in the background of your mental operating system. Every unresolved thought chips away at your attentional load, making it harder to focus and process new information. This isn't just a mental quirk, it's a measurable neurological tax that can lead to chronic stress. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain that resembles a battery with low charge. P2. Stickman surrounded by floating unresolved thought bubbles. P3. Stickman struggling to focus amidst a chaotic mental landscape. P4. Stickman with a brain depicted as a heavy weight on their head. Prompts. How does this occur? The neural mechanism involves something called working memory, a concept extensively studied by psychologist Alan Baddeley. Your working memory is like a mental workspace, and unresolved thoughts act as clutter on this desk. When your brain is preoccupied with unresolved issues, it leaves little room for new information. Imagine trying to write a report on a desk overflowing with papers. The result? Decreased cognitive efficiency and increased mental exhaustion. The brain's insistence on keeping these issues in focus leads to what's known as cognitive overload. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a cluttered desk labeled working memory. P2. Stickman frantically searching for space amidst piles of papers. P3. Stickman attempting to balance a precarious stack of thoughts. P4. Stickman with a brain depicted as an overflowing filing cabinet. Prompts. The fatal error here is the brain's inability to self-regulate this clutter effectively. When left unchecked, the accumulation of unresolved thoughts can lead to mental fatigue, akin to running a marathon without rest. This cognitive friction not only hampers your ability to think clearly, but also impacts emotional regulation. The more your working memory is taxed, the less capable you are of managing emotions, leading to a vicious cycle of stress and anxiety. Without intervention, this ongoing strain can manifest as burnout, affecting both mental and physical health. Prompts. P1. Stickman running on a treadmill labeled mental fatigue. P2. Stickman collapsed under a pile of unresolved thought bubbles. P3. Stickman with a thermometer showing burnout in the red zone. P4. Stickman with a brain that looks visibly frazzled and exhausted. Prompts. Yet, there's a silver lining hidden within this mental clutter. This cognitive friction, while taxing, forces the brain to develop resilience and adaptability. Just as muscles grow stronger with resistance training, your brain can become more efficient at processing information under pressure. It's a paradoxical advantage. The very mechanism that drains your resources can also sharpen your mental acuity over time. Think of it as cognitive boot camp. As you learn to manage this load, your brain becomes better equipped to handle complex tasks and adapt to new challenges. Prompts. P1. Stickman lifting weights labeled mental resilience. P2. Stickman with a brain depicted as a well-oiled machine. P3. Stickman navigating a complex puzzle with confidence. P4. Stickman with a brain that appears more streamlined and robust. Prompts. So, how do you leverage this paradox without succumbing to the costs? Enter the Cognitive Load Management Protocol. This involves strategically organizing your mental workspace to minimize clutter. Techniques such as cognitive offloading, using external tools like lists and reminders, can help free up working memory. By consciously managing your mental environment, you can reduce the neurological tax and enhance cognitive efficiency. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate thoughts, but to create a system that allows your brain to function optimally. Are you ready to optimize your mental workspace? Prompts. P1. Stickman tidying a mental desk labeled cognitive offloading. P2. Stickman with a checklist and clear, organized thought bubbles. P3. Stickman using tools like sticky notes and reminders effectively. P4. Stickman with a brain depicted as a streamlined control center. Prompts. Why does your brain hold on to unresolved thoughts like a dog with a bone? The immediate thought is a flaw, a glitch in your mental programming. But let's flip the script. What if this tendency is actually a hidden gem? The misconception here is that unresolved thoughts are nothing but mental clutter. In truth, they act as a feedback loop, providing your brain with essential data for future decisions. This ongoing analysis is not just noise. It's a sophisticated mechanism for learning and adaptation. Prompts. P1. Stickman examining a thought bubble with a magnifying glass. P2. Stickman with a brain depicted as a complex data processor. P3. Stickman connecting thought bubbles with lines like a network. P4. Stickman surrounded by thought bubbles labeled feedback loop. /prompts. The neural mechanics behind this feedback loop involve the brain's reward system, as outlined by neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz. Unresolved thoughts trigger the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and learning. Your brain is essentially rewarding itself for keeping these thoughts active, using them as a resource for improving predictive processing. Imagine your brain as a diligent student, constantly reviewing notes for an upcoming test. This process enhances your ability to anticipate outcomes and make better decisions in the future. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain depicted as a student studying notes. P2. Stickman with thought bubbles connected to a dopamine molecule. P3. Stickman with a brain showing reward system gears turning. P4. Stickman analyzing thought bubbles labeled future decisions. /prompts. The fatal error, however, lies in the brain's tendency to over-reward this behavior, leading to an overload of unresolved thoughts. It's like a student who never closes the textbook, constantly revising but never stepping back to synthesize the information. This neural overhead can build up to the point where it hampers your day-to-day decision-making. The brain's insistence on keeping this feedback loop active can lead to analysis paralysis, where the sheer volume of information makes it difficult to act. Prompts. P1. Stickman overwhelmed by a mountain of open textbooks. P2. Stickman with a brain depicted as a cluttered library. P3. Stickman frozen in place, surrounded by thought bubbles. P4. Stickman with a brain showing analysis paralysis in red. /prompts. Yet, in this apparent chaos lies a strategic advantage. By learning to manage this cognitive loop, you can harness its potential for deep learning and innovation. It's like mastering the art of controlled chaos. Your brain becomes a fertile ground for creative problem-solving and strategic thinking. The ability to juggle multiple unresolved thoughts can lead to breakthrough insights and novel solutions. Rather than being a hindrance, this feedback loop can be a catalyst for cognitive growth and intellectual agility. Prompts. P1. Stickman juggling thought bubbles labeled insight and innovation. P2. Stickman with a brain depicted as a creative workshop. P3. Stickman solving a complex puzzle with ease. P4. Stickman with a brain showing strategic thinking in motion. /prompts. So, how do you transform this cognitive loop from a drain into a boon? Introducing the Feedback Loop Optimization Protocol. This involves setting boundaries for your brain's analysis, using techniques like time boxing and periodic reflection to process and synthesize information. By actively managing the loop, you can ensure it remains a source of insight rather than overwhelm. The goal is to transform your brain into a dynamic problem solver, capable of leveraging unresolved thoughts for growth. Are you ready to optimize your neural feedback loop? Prompts. P1. Stickman with a timer labeled time boxing and thought bubbles. P2. Stickman reflecting on thought bubbles with a calm expression. P3. Stickman with a brain depicted as an efficient problem solver. P4. Stickman transforming chaotic thoughts into organized insights. /prompts. The challenge of letting go isn't just about silencing thoughts. It's about reprogramming your brain's default settings. The misconception? That mental stillness is achieved by forcefully pushing thoughts away. In reality, this only intensifies their presence. What you need is not suppression, but strategic engagement. Imagine trying to delete a stubborn file that keeps reappearing. Your brain requires a more nuanced approach. It's time to shift from brute force to strategic finesse. Prompts. P1. Stickman struggling with a computer file that keeps reappearing. P2. Stickman attempting to push away thought bubbles with little success. P3. Stickman with a puzzled expression, surrounded by persistent thoughts. P4. Stickman considering a new approach, depicted with a light bulb. Prompts. The neural mechanism at play involves the brain's default mode network, DMN, as explored by neuroscientists like Marcus Raichle. This network is active during rest and mind-wandering, precisely when unresolved thoughts bubble up. Instead of suppressing these thoughts, the trick is to engage them with intention. Through techniques like mindfulness and focused reflection, you can redirect the DMN from a source of distraction to a tool for insight. It's like turning a static-filled radio into a clear channel of information. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain showing the default mode network in action. P2. Stickman tuning a radio from static to clear sound. P3. Stickman practicing mindfulness amidst floating thought bubbles. P4. Stickman with a focused expression, contemplating thought bubbles. Prompts. The fatal error occurs when your attempts to let go become a battle against your own mind. Fighting the DMN only intensifies its activity, leading to a cycle of frustration and increased cognitive friction. It's like trying to swim against a powerful current. The more you struggle, the more you tire yourself out. Without intervention, this cycle can lead to mental exhaustion and decreased cognitive flexibility. The key is not to resist, but to learn to steer. Prompts. P1. Stickman swimming against a strong current, looking exhausted. P2. Stickman with a tangled web of thought bubbles labeled frustration. P3. Stickman caught in a loop of repeated thought patterns. P4. Stickman looking fatigued, with a brain depicted as a spinning wheel. Prompts. Here's the strategic pivot. By engaging the DMN intentionally, you can harness its potential for creativity and problem-solving. This network isn't just a source of distraction, it's a wellspring of innovation. When you allow your mind to wander productively, you tap into a reservoir of subconscious connections. Imagine your brain as a treasure hunter, unearthing hidden gems of insight. This approach turns mental clutter into a valuable resource for breakthrough thinking. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain depicted as a treasure map. P2. Stickman unearthing gems labeled insight and innovation. P3. Stickman with thought bubbles connecting in creative ways. P4. Stickman exploring a landscape filled with potential discoveries. Prompts. So, how do you transform this potential into a practical protocol? Meet the Mindful Engagement Protocol. This involves setting aside dedicated time to explore unresolved thoughts through structured reflection and mindfulness exercises. Techniques such as journaling, meditation, and creative brainstorming can help channel the DMN into a productive force. By consciously engaging this network, you can reduce cognitive friction and enhance mental clarity. The goal is to transform your mental landscape from a battleground into a playground of ideas. Are you ready to engage your mind with purpose? Prompts. P1. Stickman journaling with a focused expression. P2. Stickman meditating amidst a serene backdrop of thought bubbles. P3. Stickman brainstorming with thought bubbles labeled creative ideas. P4. Stickman with a brain depicted as a vibrant, dynamic playground. Prompts. So, how does this shift in approach translate into everyday life? The misconception is that mental clarity is reserved for monks or mystics. In fact, it's a practical skill accessible to anyone willing to engage their brain differently. Imagine your daily routine not as a series of tasks to survive, but as opportunities to apply these protocols. Each moment becomes a chance to recalibrate your neural architecture. This isn't about radical change. It's about subtle, strategic shifts. Prompts. P1. Stickman going through a daily routine with a thoughtful expression. P2. Stickman surrounded by floating labels like opportunity and clarity. P3. Stickman with a brain depicted as a finely tuned instrument. P4. Stickman applying a wrench to a thought bubble, making adjustments. /prompts. Consider this. Researchers suggest that simple practices like mindful breathing and focused attention exercises can significantly alter brain activity. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson's work shows that regular mindfulness practice can reshape the brain's emotional response patterns. Picture this as a mental workout where each session strengthens your cognitive muscles. By dedicating just a few minutes a day to these exercises, you enhance your brain's ability to manage unresolved thoughts, transforming them from burdens into tools for insight and calm. Prompts. P1. Stickman practicing mindful breathing with a serene expression. P2. Stickman lifting weights labeled mindfulness and focus. P3. Stickman with a brain depicted as a well-toned muscle. P4. Stickman with a stopwatch, highlighting the importance of daily practice. /prompts. The fatal error many make is expecting instant results. The human brain, like any complex system, takes time to adjust. It's akin to expecting immediate physical fitness after one gym session. The key is consistency. Without regular practice, the brain reverts to its default settings, and the cycle of unresolved thoughts resumes. This is where many falter, mistaking the slow progress for failure. The challenge is to persist, recognizing that each small step contributes to a significant shift over time. Prompts. P1. Stickman frustrated by slow progress on a brain fitness tracker. P2. Stickman at a gym with a brain depicted as a muscle in training. P3. Stickman marking a calendar, highlighting consistent practice. P4. Stickman encountering hurdles labeled patience and perseverance. /prompts. Here's where the application shines. Over time, these practices cultivate a mental environment conducive to innovation and strategic thinking. Your brain becomes adept at identifying patterns and generating creative solutions. It's like having a well-oiled machine that hums efficiently, ready to tackle complex problems with ease. This heightened cognitive flexibility not only improves personal well-being, but also enhances professional performance. You transition from reactive to proactive, from overwhelmed to empowered. Prompts. P1. Stickman with a brain depicted as a well-oiled machine. P2. Stickman solving a complex problem with confidence and ease. P3. Stickman at work with thought bubbles labeled innovation and strategy. P4. Stickman standing tall with a brain showing gears smoothly turning. /prompts. To solidify this transformation, consider implementing the daily cognitive calibration protocol. Allocate specific times for mindfulness, reflection, and creative exploration. Use tools like guided meditations, journaling prompts, and strategic planning sessions. The aim is to create a structured approach that gradually rewires your brain's default settings. As you consistently apply this protocol, you'll find your mental clarity and resilience steadily increasing. Are you ready to make this shift a permanent part of your cognitive landscape? Prompts. P1. Stickman with a planner labeled Daily Cognitive Calibration. P2. Stickman engaging in meditation with guided audio. P3. Stickman with a journal, writing prompts and reflections. P4. Stickman with a brain depicted as a dynamic, evolving landscape. /prompts. Now let's zoom out. The misconception is that these cognitive shifts are purely personal, affecting only individual well-being. But the ripple effects extend far beyond the confines of your skull. Consider how a single brain, optimized for clarity and strategic thinking, can influence an entire ecosystem. Imagine a network where each node is a brain functioning at peak efficiency. What you get is a system turbocharged for innovation and resilience. The implications aren't just personal, they're systemic. Prompts. P1. Stickman as a single node connected to a vast network of brains. P2. Stickman with thought waves radiating outward, influencing others. P3. Stickman switching on a light bulb that illuminates an entire grid. P4. Stick man with a brain depicted as a hub of interconnected nodes. Prompts. Neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Feldman-Barrett's research on emotional granularity shows that individuals who can finely distinguish their emotions are better at navigating social complexities. This skill, when practiced collectively, can transform how communities and organizations operate. Picture a workplace where every individual is equipped with the cognitive tools to manage stress and innovate creatively. The result is a culture of enhanced communication and adaptability, where challenges are met with collective ingenuity rather than individual burnout. Prompts. P1. Stick man in an office setting, surrounded by coworkers with clear, calm expressions. P2. Stick man with a brain showing detailed emotional granularity. P3. Stick man leading a team with thought bubbles labeled innovation and collaboration. P4. Stick man with a brain depicted as a vibrant, interactive network. Prompts. But here's the catch. The fatal error is assuming that systemic change is automatic. Without deliberate effort, even the most well-intentioned systems can stagnate. It's like expecting a garden to thrive without tending. If each individual within a group doesn't commit to cognitive calibration, the collective potential remains untapped. Organizational inertia can take over, leading to a cycle of inefficiency and stress. The challenge lies in fostering a culture of continuous mental optimization. Prompts. P1. Stick man staring at a garden overrun with weeds, looking concerned. P2. Stick man attempting to spark change in a stagnant group. P3. Stick man facing a wall labeled organizational inertia. P4. Stick man with a brain depicted as a neglected, overgrown garden. Prompts. Yet, the potential upside is immense. By embedding cognitive protocols into group practices, organizations can unlock unprecedented levels of creativity and resilience. It's akin to transforming a rudimentary machine into a sophisticated engine. A team trained in mindfulness and strategic thinking becomes more than the sum of its parts. They evolve into a dynamic, adaptive organism capable of navigating uncertainty with finesse. This isn't just about surviving the future, it's about shaping it. Prompts. P1. Stick man with a brain depicted as a high-performance engine. P2. Stick man leading a team through a complex maze with ease. P3. Stick man at a control panel, optimizing team performance. P4. Stick man with a brain showing gears and cogs in perfect harmony. Prompts. So, how do you catalyze this systemic evolution? Implement the collective cognitive calibration protocol. This involves integrating individual practices into group settings, using workshops, shared mindfulness sessions, and collaborative problem-solving exercises. Establish a framework where each member contributes to and benefits from a culture of clarity and innovation. The aim is to create an ecosystem where every brain is a node in a thriving, interconnected network. Are you ready to be the catalyst for this transformation? Prompts. P1. Stick man facilitating a group mindfulness session. P2. Stick man with a blueprint for a thriving network of brains. P3. Stick man with a team, collaboratively solving a complex problem. P4. Stick man with a brain depicted as a vibrant network of interconnected nodes. Prompts.